The bathroom door slammed open with no warning, steam curling out like a veil, and suddenly 3 silhouettes stood in my hallway. At the front was Claudia Mercer, the HOA president, chin tilted with her usual smugness. "Random inspection," she announced, as if she were deputized by some higher law. My wife screamed, clutching the shower curtain, and the sound carved into me like glass. I clenched the towel tighter in my fist, humiliation burning. Claudia didn't flinch. She smirked like this was sport. She had no idea what was waiting. My wife ripped the curtain aside, dripping badge in her hand, the letters FBI glinting in the steam. The hallway froze. Their intrusion wasn't just illegal, it was federal. The silence that followed was the sound of their power breaking, even if they refused to hear it. Claudia leaned in, unfazed. "Federal badge or not," she said, her voice sharp as steel. "This is an HOA matter. We have jurisdiction." That word, jurisdiction, tasted like metal in my mouth. She had just stepped into the one arena she couldn't bluff her way through. But I didn't fight her in that space, not in the sanctuary where my wife had battled chemo and rebuilt her dignity. I pushed the board members out of the bathroom, through the hallway, step by step, until the front door slammed shut. Neighbors peered from their porches, whispering. Everyone had stories about Claudia, but no one had dared speak them aloud. Until now. The next morning, I walked into the clubhouse, her throne room. Polished oak doors, tacky brass plaque, the smell of stale coffee and arrogance. Claudia sat at the head of the long table, flanked by her board, violation slips stacked like ammunition. I laid down a copy of Virginia property law, highlighted and irrefutable. No entry without owner consent, except in emergencies. The silence was heavier than steam in a shower. Claudia's lips twitched, but her eyes flickered. Neighbors glanced at each other. Cracks had formed. And I saw something else. Terrell Gaines, the maintenance supervisor, shifting uneasily, his conscience pressing on him like a weight he couldn't shake. Claudia retaliated fast. A notice taped to my door in scarlet red letters. $1,500 fine for excessive water use. An open attempt to humiliate us. My wife folded her arms, fury plain in her face. "She's trying to break us in public," she said. Instead of tearing it down, I left it. Let everyone see how far Claudia would go. Then I went to the fountain at the entrance, the so-called crown jewel of Mercer Point. Up close, it was cracked, groaning, bleeding thousands of gallons into the dirt every week. She fined families for shower lengths, while her monument wasted entire households' worth of water. I documented everything: photos, measurements, notes. Years as a civil engineer had taught me how to build cases as strong as bridges. And this one was already solid. At the State Department of Environmental Quality, I filed the report. Flow rates, seepage volumes, photographs, contractor invoices ignored. The inspector skimmed the evidence, his eyes narrowing. "If this checks out, it'll trigger a compliance review," he said. That was all I needed. Claudia might play queen of Mercer Point, but the state didn't bend to arrogance. Back in the neighborhood, eyes followed me differently now. Not with pity, but with curiosity, maybe even hope. Claudia smirked when I passed, but her posture had tightened. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. Meanwhile, Terrell cracked. I found him in the maintenance shed, hands shaking as he tinkered with a tool that didn't need fixing. I told him Claudia was pushing him too far. He stayed silent, jaw tight, wrench slipping from his hand. Silence is loud when it carries guilt. Later, he came to my door, shoulders hunched, sweat beading on his temple. "She told me to use the master key," he admitted, voice cracking. "Claudia ordered me. If I refused, she'd blacklist me. I've got kids." His hands trembled. "But when your wife screamed, I knew I'd gone too far." He looked broken, but his resolve flickered through the guilt. He handed me original maintenance logs, spikes in water use, contractor notes, invoices, evidence Claudia had forced him to falsify. Proof of her fraud. At the park, I quietly laid some of the documents on a bench. Neighbors leaned in, whispers turning into gasps. When Claudia stormed toward me, barking about unauthorized distribution, Terrell stepped out of the crowd. His voice shook but carried weight. "They're not falsified. I logged those numbers. She told me to hide the leaks." Silence rippled, heavier than thunder. Claudia barked at him to sit down, but his shoulders straightened for the first time. "Not worth my job," he said. And the neighbors erupted. Whispers turned into outrage, outrage into defiance. Claudia's grip was loosening. The showdown came at the board meeting. The hall was packed, tension thick. Claudia rattled on about reckless households, her eyes flicking toward me like knives. I stood, binder in hand. "Your conservation campaign is built on lies," I said, voice steady. "This fountain bleeds thousands of gallons while you fine families for nothing. I've given the evidence to the state. You can't bury this." Gasps, murmurs, heads turning. Terrell stepped forward, tool belt hanging at his side, but his spine straight. His hands trembled, but his words rang clear. "I was ordered to falsify reports. Claudia told me to hide the leaks, and here are my originals." He held up his folder, and the room broke. Neighbors shouted, waving their violation notices, demanding answers. Claudia slammed her clipboard on the table, face red, but her words cracked under the weight of the crowd. Her stage had become her reckoning. 2 days later, the inspector arrived. Clipboard in hand, sleeves rolled, he crouched by the fountain, measuring, listening. His expression darkened. Finally, he stood. "This fountain is in clear violation of state conservation regulations. Records confirm falsified reports. Fines will be issued immediately." The words hit Claudia like a blow. She shrieked about lies, but the inspector cut her off cold. Terrell's voice followed. "It's true. I was ordered to alter everything. I'm done lying." Neighbors erupted in applause, clapping him on the back, cheering. Claudia's clipboard slipped from her hands, clattering to the pavement. For the first time, she had no words left. Board members muttered about resigning. Her empire collapsed in the daylight she couldn't control. The neighborhood changed overnight. The fountain was shut down, its silence louder than its spray had ever been. A new election brought hope, not fear. Terrell kept his job, no longer a pawn, but a man respected for his honesty. Neighbors who once avoided my eyes now greeted me openly. My wife and I stood at the roundabout, hand in hand, watching the dry stone fountain, ... The place that once symbolized Claudia's arrogance now marked her downfall. I thought back to the first night, the scream echoing in our bathroom, the moment humiliation cut deepest. What began as desecration had ended in liberation. Claudia tried to strip us of dignity, but in doing so, she gave us something stronger, a reminder that no one, no matter how smug, no matter how high they sit with a clipboard, is above the law.